Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. So, today we are going to discuss further about language and culture because on our previous meeting, on meeting 9, we are discuss yeah about if I'm not mistaken, cultural or comparing cultures in specific. Okay, so today we are going to discuss about language and culture. How is the concept and how is the example and what is the purpose, yeah, and then how it's related to the academic listening. Okay, so before we start, let's open this meeting by reciting basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, guys, for today's meeting, we are having atau we have two learning objectives. Yeah, the first one, students are able to conceptualize the concept and example of language and culture in a monologue in a form of lecture and session accurately and properly through watch and listen activity. So you are going to listen, no, watch and listen to a TED event delivered by someone who is talking about the implication of culture on language. So you have to watch and listen to the talk, and then at the end of the session you are going to make a summary, yeah, in a spoken way related to the TED event talk, yeah, entitled the implication of language, no, implication of culture on language. So the next one, you are going to be able to develop a summarize, not summarize, yeah. I made a mistake here. Develop a summary of overall talk from podcasts related to language and monologue. Its meaning atau the correct one is language and culture. I made a mistake here again, yeah. So on the language objective, second language objective, I made two mistakes. The first one is a summary and the second one is language and culture, yeah. So hopefully you got the correct one. Okay, so make a summary related to language and culture accurately and properly through listen and summarize activity. So you have to make a summary in a written form in 250 words at least, yeah. The podcast entitled The Link Between Language and Culture. So you have to emphasize several points that related to the talk, the podcast talk entitled The Link Between Language and Cultures. Okay, that's it. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, guys, so for this one, yeah, or for this occasion, before we move forward to our material today, this is a concept, yeah, that related to language and culture. We are living in the social world by using language. We can communicate, interpret, and play. It helps us to share with others and identify ourselves. As we know, language and culture have a strong link since it's a key element of culture. As people, we utilize language to communicate and express our thoughts, emotion, and experiences. Language is not only a medium of communication, right? But it also shapes our thinking, perception, and conduct. Furthermore, language is deeply ingrained in culture, as it mirrors the values, convictions, practice, and customs of a specific group of individuals. Every culture has its distinctive language, including idiom, metaphor, and expression specific to that culture. Hence, examining the correlation between language and culture is indispensable for expanding our comprehension of human society, how individual interacts with each other. It looks at how culture and language influence each other, with example we get from around the world. Okay, so guys, there is a statement, yeah, about language and culture are actually interrelated to each other. It's definitely say that the implication, the link between language and culture are very strong. Because as we know, language is the icon of a culture. And also a culture, yeah, can be identified by the language itself. So actually language and culture are two concept, are two, what is it? What is it? Are two concept, not concept, are actually two meaning, yeah, two issue that interrelated to each other. So these issue are bounding to each other in a such a communication, yeah, as a medium that someone who is listening to a language can definitely and automatically know its culture. So it means that the language and culture are actually interrelated to each other. So that's the importance of the language on culture and also culture on language. So on today's material, we are going to dig deeper the link between language and culture and also the implication on culture, what is it, the implication of culture on language and also the implication of culture on language, language on culture. Okay, so let's we begin by watching and listen to the first video in or at a TED event. Okay guys, there is a talk, yeah, delivered by a man talking about the implication of culture on language. So you have to watch and listen carefully. Happy watching.
What images come to your mind when you see or hear the word culture? If you were to ask me personally, I would say food, because who doesn't love to bond over a great meal? But have you thought about the implications of culture on language? And more importantly, how culture can impact our everyday communication? Just by a show of hands, how many of you speak a language other than English or know someone who does? Take a moment to look around you because almost all of you have raised your hand. Having grown up both within the United States and Iran, I have been exposed to two very different and unique ways of life, each with their own distinct culture. But it was only when I started to teach English in Iran that I began to understand the dynamic relationship between culture and language. Culture can impact what we communicate verbally and non-verbally. And to demonstrate that to you today, I'd like to reflect on some of my English language teaching experiences. You can understand the shock on my face when my student addressed me as master. For a second, I didn't know how to respond. Was this a scene from Karate Kid? Was I Master Miyagi and my student Daniel's son? Wax on, wax off? However, with the help of one of my colleagues, I came to understand that one of the Persian words for teacher, when translated to English, has a similar definition to master, highlighting and signifying the high degree of respect a student holds for his or her teacher. Or another time, when after a long and stressful day of teaching, my student stopped me and said in the calmest and smoothest of voices, "Don't be tired." I wasn't sure what to make of that. Was I being encouraged or mocked because of my teaching efforts? When I told a colleague of mine, she said that the statement that my student had uttered was similar to a simple thank you in the English language. However, it differed in that the connotation of the expression underlined the mental and physical efforts that I had put into class that day. Now, culture is not only limited to verbal modes of communication, but can also impact nonverbal communication as well. Think about body gestures for a second. Let's say that you and I were having a conversation, much like the one that we're having right now, and I decided to fold my arms. What would you make of that? For one, it could mean that I'm cold, but what could it potentially reveal about my personality? Here in the United States, folding your arms is associated with being unfriendly, distant, or standoffish. But what if I told you that the same exact body gesture has a completely different connotation in another environment, like East Asia and the Middle East? In that context, folding your arms is a sign of contemplation and wisdom, indicating that you are wholeheartedly thinking about what has been said to you to provide the best possible response. Now, oftentimes, there are even cultural concepts and notions that are virtually non-existent in another environment. Take, for instance, the Persian cultural concept of ta'aruf. Simply put, ta'aruf is a staple and integral part of the Persian culture, emphasizing polite gestures and cultural pleasantries in a wide array of situations. And here's what it looks like. For me, going out to eat looks very different depending on whether I'm with my Persian or non-Persian friends. With my non-Persian friends, it's a very peaceful and tranquil experience. When the bill comes, everyone pays for the meal they had separately, and we leave. However, it's a completely different story when I'm out with my Persian friends. It's a battlefield as we try to snatch the bill from the waiter to proclaim victorious in paying for everyone. Now, this might seem strange, but this is a sign of hospitality within the Persian culture, indicating that you have greatly enjoyed the other person's presence and they are your guest for the meal. This can even go to extremes as we arrive earlier at a restaurant just to provide our credit card, so our guest has absolutely no chance of paying. So, take it from me. Make sure you have some Persian friends. That way, you'll never have to pick up the bill. Cultural concepts such as ta'aruf are even more difficult to grasp for individuals not familiar with the context. So you can imagine the puzzling look on my European's friend's face when he came to Iran for the first time. And the cab driver told him that he didn't have to pay the fare, saying something along the lines of, "It's not worthy of you." Next thing you know, the same cab driver is shouting and yelling at him, "Where do you think you're going, pal? You forgot to pay the fare." My friend, unaware of the cultural concept of ta'aruf, solely relied on his understanding of language, which led him to literally take the offer. However, it is this cultural knowledge that makes it known that it's customary for service personnel to refuse payment 2 or 3 times as a sign of hospitality, all while expecting the payment to be completed in the end. Now, keep in mind, all of the examples that we have talked about today represent a very micro scale of the present-day multiculturalism that exists. Currently, there are around 1.35 billion English speakers around the world, out of which around 1 billion also speak a language other than English, which consciously and unconsciously brings with itself cultural norms and perceptions which may influence and impact their English communication. And the United States is a wonderful example of a multicultural environment. As of 2018, there are around 67 million individuals who speak a language other than English right here. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is any of this important? Well, firstly, fostering and developing an appreciation that each and every single culture brings something to this table called life. And secondly, for me personally, this is important because as an English language instructor and doctoral student here at Texas A&M, I feel responsible for paying forward this knowledge to the future generation of educators so that they not only know what to provide in the classroom in terms of the language that is accurate and appropriate, but also takes into context the richness and culture that these individuals possess. Which brings the question, what can we do when the landscape is so rich? Realistically and practically speaking, we cannot be expected to know every single thing there is about the wide array of cultures that exist. But if there's one thing that I would like for you to take away from this talk today, it's this: that just because individuals act and say things that may slightly differ from our norms and perceptions does not mean that they are wrong and we are right. Rather, it offers a different lens and perspective of looking into life. One that you and I might be interested in learning a little bit more about. Thank you.
So, after you watching the video and listening to the talk, the introduction and then the body of the talk and also the conclusion, so my question is, what and how are the implication of culture on language itself? So, I expected you to be able to answer this question. Yeah, since the video that you previously watched definitely stated very important way, very important discussion and also the crucial points of what makes culture, yeah, implicated. I mean, has implication on a language. So, in this occasion, you are going to questioning yourself, or questioning yourself, I mean, you are going to be able to discuss to explain better what and how are the implication of culture on language. Let's say you are able to distinguish, to decide whether your culture has an impact on your language. For example, your culture as Sundanese, and then how the Sundanese culture impactful, has an implication on your language while you're speaking, for example. So I think I expected you to be able to answer this question by yourself. Okay. Okay, so guys, for this listening practice, let's practice bringing on exercise. You are going to listen to a podcast, entitled The Link Between Language and Culture. After you listen to the podcast, you have to summarize the overall talk by making or by developing a short summary in 250 I mean 250 words, by emphasizing some crucial points within the talk. So guys, you have to be ready to listen and then you have to summarize the overall talk. Okay, good luck.
Welcome back to the English Dialogue Podcast, everyone. I'm Mike, and I'm here with my co-host, Emma. Today, we're diving into a fascinating cultural question. Emma, how's it going?
I'm great, Mike. Thanks for asking. I'm excited about today's topic. It's one that I've pondered for a long time. Let's lay it out for our listeners.
Sure. Today's question is, some people think you can never truly understand a country's culture unless you speak its language. We're going to explore whether we agree or disagree with this opinion.
Exactly. It's a big idea. Language and culture are so intertwined, yet I wonder if it's possible to appreciate cultural nuances without fully mastering the language. Let's break this down.
Right. On one hand, language carries a nation's history, traditions, humor, and social norms. It's a window into how people think and behave. But does that mean it's impossible to grasp culture from the outside?
I think language is indeed a powerful tool. It reveals concepts and values embedded in everyday communication. But I also think cultural understanding can come from observations, experiences, and interactions that don't always rely on words.
Let's consider an example. Imagine traveling to Japan. Without knowing Japanese, you can still see how people bow, you can taste their food, notice their politeness, and experience orderliness. Doesn't that give you some cultural understanding?
Absolutely. Observing body language, social rituals, and etiquette can offer insights. For instance, in Japan, even if you don't speak Japanese, you understand the importance of respect through bowing, punctuality, and gift-giving traditions. These nonverbal cues highlight societal values, respect for elders, politeness, and harmony, without relying on linguistic proficiency. At the same time, there might be deeper meanings or historical references that become clearer once you learn certain Japanese words or phrases. But even without that, you still have a sense of what's valued.
That's well said. Culture is multi-layered, and language is just one layer, albeit a crucial one. Another angle, consider how many people enjoy foreign films, music, or cuisine. They gain cultural appreciation through artistic expressions, even if they don't understand the lyrics or dialogue fully.
True. Take K-pop or French cinema. People worldwide appreciate them without fully understanding Korean or French. They learn about aesthetics, humor, narrative style, and social issues portrayed on screen. This fosters a kind of cultural familiarity, even if it's partial.
But let's play devil's advocate. Some argue that without language, you miss subtle cultural references, metaphors, and idiomatic expressions that are deeply rooted in a nation's past. Isn't there a risk of misunderstanding culture if you can't access those linguistic layers?
Yes, that's a valid point. Certain jokes, proverbs, or historical allusions might completely fly over your head if you don't speak the language. Language is a key to unlocking those hidden stories that shape a culture's identity.
Let's imagine an American trying to understand Chinese culture. They might see the importance of family gatherings, respect for ancestors, and enjoy Chinese festivals. But without language, they might not grasp the poetic nature of certain Confucian teachings or the layered meanings of Mandarin idioms. The language provides a direct route into philosophical traditions, ancient texts, and the way people articulate their relationship with nature and community. Without that linguistic gateway, the understanding remains somewhat at the surface, even if still meaningful in its own right.
I see what you mean. So perhaps language deepens cultural understanding. It's not that you can't understand anything without it, but more that your understanding might be limited or incomplete.
Exactly. It's a spectrum. You can appreciate many aspects of a culture, its food, rituals, social norms, arts, and values, just by observing and participating. But language opens more doors, allowing you to understand why certain practices exist, how people discuss them, and what they mean on a deeper level.
That makes sense. Learning the language can transform cultural understanding from a two-dimensional snapshot into a three-dimensional experience. It gives context and narrative to what you observe.
Right. Another point, language learning itself is a cultural journey. Through studying a language, you learn about historical influences, like loanwords from neighboring countries or dialects that reflect regional identities. It's like traveling through time and geography just by understanding how people speak.
Exactly. It evolves as language evolves. When you learn the language, you also learn how cultural values shift, how new slang emerges, how humor adapts. You're inside the engine room of cultural change.
So, do we agree with the statement? I'd say I partially agree. I think you can gain a significant understanding of a culture without speaking its language. However, to truly grasp its deeper nuances, its literature, humor, politics, and worldview language skills make a substantial difference.
I agree with that nuance. It's not all or nothing. You can understand aspects of culture through observation, art, food, and behavior. But full appreciation, especially of the subtler layers, often requires linguistic fluency.
For instance, think about how different cultures express love, gratitude, or even disagreement. Without language, you might notice patterns. Maybe people hug a lot, or they carefully phrase critiques. But when you know the language, you understand the specific words chosen to show respect, the terms that soften direct criticism, the poetic phrases used in love songs. You learn that certain words carry historical weight. Maybe a term is linked to a famous poem or myth. This level of insight is hard to achieve without understanding the language itself.
That's a powerful example. Culture isn't just about what we do, it's also about how we talk about what we do. And that's where language becomes essential. It's the commentary track that explains the cultural movie you're watching.
Well put. And just to throw another perspective in, some people argue that body language and context are universal enough to convey meaning. But even nonverbal cues differ across cultures, and language often helps clarify what those cues mean in context.
Right. What might be considered polite silence in one culture could be seen as awkwardness in another. Language can clarify those differing social signals, so you're not just guessing.
So, to wrap up, I think the final take is you can understand a culture to a certain degree without speaking its language enough to appreciate its uniqueness, customs, and general values. But for a truly deep and nuanced understanding, the kind that lets you feel at home in that culture's worldview language is the key.
I couldn't have said it better, Mike. Language is the lens that brings cultural subtleties into focus. Without it, you might see the outline, but not the finer details.
Well, I hope our listeners found this conversation enlightening. It's a complex issue and one worth considering when we travel, learn languages, or interact with people from different backgrounds.
Absolutely. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think speaking the language is essential to fully understand a culture? Let us know.
Yes, share your opinions with us. We're always open to feedback, suggestions, and personal stories. Before we wrap up, Emma, any final words?
Just that everyone's journey to cultural understanding is unique. Don't be discouraged if you don't speak the language perfectly. Every bit of effort counts, and cultural appreciation can start with small steps.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for tuning into the English Dialogue Podcast. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep connecting with cultures worldwide.
Yes, thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another thought-provoking discussion. Take care, everyone.
Okay, guys, as usual, on this direction, you are going to make a summary by emphasizing these crucial points, yeah, A until E, A sampai A, yeah, in 250 words. So you have to develop a summary from the overall talk and then you have to submit it on time. Okay? Guys, best of luck. Okay, guys, that's all for our meeting today. Let's close this meeting by reciting basmalah. Kok basmalah? Hamdalah maksudnya. Oke. Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much, guys. See you around. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.